Hello, Adam.
Yeah,
How are you?
yeah, well, I'm fine. And you?
Yeah, I'm very, very happy. Visual Meta is live today. The papers are publicly available, so I'm going to celebrate with oh yeah, here we go. A strong glass
Yeah,
of
it's
apple juice.
censored.
There we go. So yeah, I'm good. How are you? How have you been?
Yeah, the colds, lots of colds.
Oh, okay.
But
Summer colds
apart from
are
that,
annoying.
yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out online how on a Mac you switch an app, you go Command Tab, right?
Yep.
When was that introduced? I can't find it. It's such an example of a non-intuitive feature that is actually really, really useful and powerful.
And I just taught someone that you can add a shift to that command tab. That person has tabbed command tabbed the whole time, but whenever they overshoot by one program, they cycle the whole. They press 5 times again to go back, and it's
Also very useful. Also very useful. Yeah, Brendan, I'm trying to find out when Command Tab was introduced on the Mac. And it
mm,
brings up several issues. Number one is, why are these things not properly recorded anywhere? It's weird, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
there's,
especially like a hardware feature like that.
yeah, it's very odd. I mean, I found when it was introduced on Windows, and it's a bit significant because it's clearly something that, hang on, having a message from Peter here.
Uh,
Uh,
quick update on my side. I can't stay today. I just wanted to wish you the best tomorrow. I've got
oh,
another meeting here in a few minutes. Last update to the presentation looked good. So
yeah, thank
Godspeed.
you. I took your point. I'll just show you. Do you have a minute? Quick minute?
Yeah, I've got five.
Okay,
So I
five.
gotta jump off.
Okay. So sharing, you can see it here, right?
Yep.
yep.
So as we go through the stuff everyone's seen forever, and don't worry, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but remove the recorded thing first. So what we have is, so we say it looks like BibTeX, people will be used to it. Start end wrappers, and then inside, label introductory text. This is all the ACM stuff, but there's more. So here, I really say what it is. It's a document hash, and what the details of the author does, because I'll have to run through this so people can look at it later if they want. And that's what you meant, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I really liked how you almost just like assigned the feature to each section. It was really helpful to track.
Good, good. Oh, there's something I need to check actually. Do they do come in automatically? Yeah, because when I was doing some tests, they didn't always. Okay, so that's done. Yeah, so that's all. Then on the last slide. Oh yeah, Adam, since you haven't seen this, under current implementations, we just have this, which
Yep.
will be shown really briefly because it's 5 minutes for the whole thing.
So why is they should be aligned horizontally? Data and coding, Adam and Mark. Why is Mark
Oh wow,
above?
good call.
You're a graphical designer, Frode. Is
What do
there
you- Oh, you mean yeah? Of course they should.
unless you?
You mean like that?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. No.
Triggering my
OCD.
yeah.
I agree. Thank you. That was a good catch.
Good morning.
Morning,
Morning.
Peter.
Hello.
So you sent an email. Sorry, just Brendan has to go. So just going through the last few points. What Jury added is kind of in here now.
Very good.
And at the very end is this order. Make sense?
Yep, I was really pleased with the presentation. Everything just perfect. Couldn't have come up with a better organization myself if I tried for 2 weeks.
Thank you. I tried for 3 weeks. And that's how. But,
You know the old saying, I'd make it shorter if I had more time.
Yep. I know that one very, very well. Okay, well, that was good. There's no point going through today unless someone has a specific point. So I just wanted to mention that. It's so the visual meta documents are live now on the ACM webpage, and it's just freaking weird. It's a difference between an idea and a reality, isn't it?
Indeed.
Oh, wonderful.
We'll have to go forth and make stuffs. So, yeah. Brendan, since you only have a few minutes, anything particular you want to talk about before you disappear?
No, just wanted to say Godspeed tomorrow. Knock it out. Presentation looks good. That's really it. Just wanted to check in.
Thank you. Who here, if anybody, will be there tomorrow? Come on, guys. It's ACM Hypertext. The thing is going to be there. Anyway, you know more than anybody else. So you're there in both spirit and name on screen. So that'll do.
Indeed. Take care, guys.
Yeah.
I'll see you Friday.
Take care, Brendan.
Monthly meetings Thursday, right?
Yes.
I'll see you there.
Yeah, very good.
Take care.
We're missing Mr. Anderson, who was doing a presentation, and there's a quiet lurking Gunter somewhere I can see.
Hi, Gunter.
Hello there. Just checking in.
Long time no see.
Yes. I was just curious what you guys are up to. And but you will be presenting tomorrow at the ACM.
Yes. So everybody here has helped me with the presentation. It's all done, and now the ACM papers for Hypertext 21 are live with Visual Meta, which is insane. I sent a message to, I basically sent a message to all my friends saying, wow, blah, blah, blah. And one of them came back with, oh, but I can't see it. Freak out. Is there some setup that means it's on my machine and not on her machine? Anyway, it turned out she hadn't downloaded the PDF. She was looking at the download page only. No, this is obvious. So yeah, anyway, it's okay. So that's what we're up to here. But also Adam is very kindly pushing us in further directions. So an introduction for that kind of talk today. Just want to tell you the paragraph I wrote for my PhD, which may have to be deleted, but whatever. The whole boiling frog thing, if you boil a frog slowly enough, it will die because it won't notice the change.
Yep.
It is not true. A frog will leave at around 25 degrees Celsius. But it's still a good analogy, because if you look at our situation, we have been boiling ourselves in technology for a long time. And it's really, really interesting. Of course, Doug was all about power, and then there was this fashion for ease of use, which was to introduce people. But when you really look at it, if you go back 100,000 or 200,000 years to one of our ancestors who were anatomically exactly the same as us and say, here's a thing. Okay, it's a bit blurry because of the screen. On this, you can move your finger up and down, and information will go up and down. If something is blue, you can tap on it, it'll change what's on here. Oh, by the way, let's introduce you to the idea of reading and writing first. And also you can do reading and writing. If you tap a thing that is blue and white color here, that message will go to anybody, anywhere in the world, instantly. Right? Oh, no, you want to go to a different app. Okay, you have to take your finger outside and move it up. And you will see. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how much stuff we are doing that is utterly having to be learned. So I think our group here has an amazing opportunity in history to introduce some crazy new shit. As long as it's useful for the user, doesn't have to be intuitive at all, as long as there's a clear way to explain it, right?
I know that dragging up from the very bottom of the iOS, it took me a long time to stumble onto that. It was like a completely invisible affordance.
Oh yeah, it completely is. And it's one of the main ones you need to know. I remember it's actually my father's business partner who first had that iPhone. I had an older one. It was like, what are you doing? Right? It was such a great wake up. And also the reason I'm looking for the introduction of Command Tab on Macintosh is because that is a completely unobvious affordance, but it's super useful.
Even the keyboard shortcuts for a copy and paste is
Very true.
You can become an office wizard just by knowing those keyboard shortcuts in some organizations.
Yes.
How many people reprogram their touch bar to actually make it useful?
I don't use the touch bar much, but I do like having it actually. But I'm not quite sure why.
I find it's a godsend when I'm typesetting. That's when you really want all those extra soft buttons to be able to pop in.
If it were more user programmable by default, that you really knew what things were there all the time, and then it could have been even greater. I think for now you really need to be a wizard to configure it right so it always stays the same and predictable.
Well, there's a great app called Better Touch Tool that handles that for you. It's just that they should have bundled it with the OS instead of having it out there for only nerds like us to stumble onto and make use of.
Alan, we're talking about the fact that so many of the affordances we have are not obvious, such as the Command Tab to change application and so on, and how we're at an incredible time in history where we can, as long as we invent something really, really useful, it doesn't have to be intuitive or easy to use or whatever nonsense, provided a basic trained person, once told about it, can do amazing things.
Yeah, and it's a social thing as well, that you learn from others, from your colleagues or from your children, or so it's really
Google, with as much flack as they get for how they run their apps, is full of hidden features like that, like Google Calendar, for instance, how you can set a meeting and create a shadow meeting, or like make it appear so that it actually starts 5 minutes later than it actually does, or some sort of like fuzzy connection between what's on your calendar when it actually then happens, stuff like that. So hidden. Is that what we're talking about? Like powerful affordances that don't have to be, this is where you find this. This is where you find this feature.
A little bit, yeah. It's also, there's a lot of things. This comes out of, we're trying to, now that Visual Meta is actually live, you can download it from the ACM for the Hypertext 21 papers. It's live today. It's just insane. It's amazing.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like a different human. Where are the amazing big steps we can do in actual interactions now that we've done a piece of infrastructure? What's the big jump we can make? And the reason, the introduction to this is, I was talking about the whole idea of boiling a frog slowly, it won't notice. Turns out to be bullshit, but it's a great analogy or whatever. We have boiled ourselves into such high level computer use, even an ordinary office worker with Command Tab, Command X, all these types of things. So all I was saying is that we're at an amazing opportunity. I said this already. If we can just think of something really powerfully useful, that is much more important than the actual interaction. The interaction can be polished. Of course, it will have to be polished. But everything we do today, somebody 100 years ago would not have any clue what it is, or 1,000 years ago. So this is not about fitting our basic sensory capabilities. This is, like Adam just said, it's partly social. We teach each other these things.
This might line right up. I kind of had a dream last night about, I say kind of because I'm not sure if I was waking up, about Visual Meta and standoff properties, and how perfectly they fit together, and how it could be something a radically different experience, right? If you're storing the standoff highlights and comments to those highlights in the Visual Meta, so that when you get a PDF, you can see it based on the reader type. You know, you would see it highlighted and see the comments, add more without having like without actually sending along a PDF that has the highlights actually embedded in it. There's something there that Visual Meta could do even better than I think a live OS with Standoff, where the content itself is actually changing. You know, that merge between Standoff and Roam is really messy and difficult to think about. But if you're talking about PDF, where here is the canonical text, and then without damaging it or influencing it, I'm adding all of this extra comment and connections, I think it'd be super powerful.
It's really interesting to hear you say that today, because first of all, Jacob has been spending an inordinate amount of time, means money, on annotations in Reader, because the annotation system in PDF is basically broken. Depending on what app you make an annotation, you go back and then you open it somewhere else, and things are just literally smashed to pieces. So one of the very, very first reasons for Visual Meta was exactly what you're saying. Because when I started using reference managers, all of which I hate, by the way, but I don't hate the idea, but every single one I've tried is just horrific for my sensibilities. If I highlight text in a PDF, I cannot then search just for that text, right? That gobsmacks my brain.
Yeah,
No.
right, exactly.
And that's if you manage to select the text you want because of all of the broken structure inside of the PDF. Sometimes you're selecting one thing in one column and it jumps all the way to somewhere else. It's maddening.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah, so we are talking about what should be addressable, what should be selectable, what should be interactable, right?
Yep.
So in this world, a highlighted thing or an annotated thing, I mean, there are of course things like hypothesis and so on, which allows you to, in a way, Standoff annotate, right?
Well, and so that's a great segue, but continue.
That was it.
Okay, well, I mean, that's the use case right there, right? I want a PDF version of everything that various people have crowdsourced on Hypothesis, right? I want to download that PDF and I want to get all their comments as part of the PDF that I can either search through or discount or, you know, like demote, whatever, you know, but yeah, like that would be amazing. Take Hypothesis, download all the comments, turn it into a Visual Meta PDF with Standoff at the back end. That's poorly phrased, but you get the idea. It's like, that's already crowdsourcing. That helps out Hypothesis become a superpower, right? That could already be the format where one, I mean, there could be other tools, obviously Reader, Author, there could be other tools for doing this, but yeah, like Hypothesis is already there. And if you could just hit, or, you know, sync your account in Hypothesis, be able to extract all the public comments and then just have it in a simple immutable PDF form.
Yeah, or in a community like us. I mean, we've talked recently a bit, I think both Alan and Adam, I apologize, Alan, for putting Adam's name in front of yours on the
No worries.
slide. Couldn't have thought of a better name at least, right, Adam?
Yeah.
Anyway, he doesn't even know what I'm talking about, which is good. Right. The idea of us, you know, we've looked at the script, which is good. But the idea of us just recording our meetings, having it in a text form, that while we were in the meeting, we could have done a keyboard shortcut, whatever, to say, oh, this is interesting for the future. But then we look at our own transcripts afterwards, highlight or whatever. That kind of highlighting, annotation or editing or whatever we want to call it, of our own PDF or text, forget PDF. It should be easy for this group to make that one document. You know, literally spending a minute afterwards, or being like a stamp collector, having fun, you know, playing with it. Either way, we should be able to say, this is the meeting we had today. Peter said something brilliant. Alan's made a joke, whatever it is. That's what I said. What did Raphael say? Exactly. And that can only be done when things are layered. and it's only
Right.
going to last if it's open.
Totally agree. That's interesting too, because like I think standoff, there's still some things that need to be worked out with it, but I think it is a better way forward than standard HTML markup. And I think a lot of people agree with that, right? But then the other question is, what's the entry point? How do you introduce this into the system? Oh, sorry, Adam, go ahead.
I was thinking about video and images. Often I want to annotate videos and images, but keep the original source in some way, especially for images. You have a screenshot or you have a downloaded image, and you want to highlight something on that image, something that is good, or yeah, to do highlights. But I don't want to do graffiti on the original, and I don't really want to duplicate the file and do a different version. I want to bundle them together in a way. So that is something for us to solve, or for someone to solve, but I think we are in a good position here. In PDF, it's easier. You can append the page at the back, but for video and images and sound, it's harder to append it. Of course, they have metadata facilities, but I wonder how the container for the whole thing should be for all the kinds of media that we can't really append to.
Well, Adam, we have EXIF for images, and we have EDLs for video, right?
Yeah, we
deal with that.
Yeah, and same for PDF. You could append things with the same metadata facilities. Most common media formats can append XMP metadata. But I wonder if there should be a container. It could be a folder thing, that you do a folder around everything and put the metadata on the side, but or you zip them together. But how should you bundle the things so you could have many different layers, so you can append but still keep the original intact? Because to me that is very, very important for many, many reasons.
Could you give us a use case or two?
For not appending to the
just a case where someone, you or someone specified, would like to perform this function. Why would they want to do it?
For PDFs, it's
no.
easy.
For video pictures or whatever.
When I rewatch this call, and I often do, I want to download a copy, and I want to annotate, or I want to put timestamps and small comments, highlight good things, and put my own ideas into it. Right now I do it in my system, but it's still lots of work, and I need a more fluid interaction for it. But I want to send those comments to you, or to and also get your comments, your highlights, and so we can continue the discussion afterwards. So that is a real use case that I really, really want.
I think that sounds like $1 billion idea. A fluid interaction for recording a meeting, annotating it, sharing those annotating. In other words, it is a bridge between not only text and video, it is also a bridge between synchronous and asynchronous communication, right?
Adam, is the Descript app like kind of part of the way there? Is that thinking sort of similar in how you're taking audio and you can you can deconstruct the audio and cut it to pieces and correct the transcription? Is that sort of like the same spirit, but it would be for video as well, and add annotation and documents?
Yes, we had a discussion with Mark a few meetings ago. I don't think the transcript is necessary for me in most use cases. Okay. I really like the hearing you again. When I highlight something, I don't want to read about it. I want to have a 20-second clip from you.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So that is why what I want. I want to highlight the range and add comments, and a transcript is good also, but I think it doesn't translate too well. Citing you when we're having this discussion, just what I'm saying right now, it's not really a fully formed sentence. It's kind of a stream of consciousness thing, but it doesn't really translate well to the written form. So I want to see the original.
That reminds me of an app I used when I was doing user interviews. And I would, just mobile app, and I would record the conversation, but at any moment I could I could very easily truncate it down into the snippets. But even while it was going, I could hit like a little reaction button, or maybe I made this up, this part, but where, oh, Adam, you just said something really interesting, and I've got like a smiley face, sad face, or maybe a glasses face, and I could just tag it that way so that I can come back later and know that this is the snippet that I want to grab. And then you could add comments to it. It was a really cool app. Let's see if I can find it.
So we have had in Author before, when we had read and edit mode, a way where you could put a link to a specific time in video from YouTube, which is of course quite simple. Control-click on YouTube and you get it. Put that link in Author, and when you're in read mode, you click on it, it will open in Author to that moment. So that's the very, very beginning of this. So what we are talking about, I think, is the very, very old idea of a true multimedia, quote unquote, book. Let's say we open, I'm going to obviously live in my environment, it's easier to think, in Author, where I drag the source video in or put a link in and somehow indicate to the system that this is the big thing I'm talking about. It's not just an external citation. And there's no reason we can't expect this system to do the transcript and all of that stuff. That should be pretty easy. So you should then be able to toggle into full video mode, where you do one kind of highlight, a transcript mode, and then also mixed mode, right? Where you write your text, see other people's texts, and then you can play snippets of video there. We're talking about that kind of thing, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I would love to see an environment where, it doesn't matter what format the content is in, and you always have, the understanding of it. So if I have a video, I'm also going to have the audio and the text for it, and I can interact in any way I so choose. And then if I mark up something on the text, if I highlight the text, it's going to highlight the timeline of the video, and then it might give me a little audio prompt if I'm listening in an audio format, like a little beep, and then it starts a quote, and then a beep again, it stops the quote. So that part was highlighted, or that part is important. So I'd love to see this I don't know if it's interoperability or something that, it doesn't matter what audio, video, or text, it would always carry, the interactions with it.
And in podcast, it has really changed, or it has become so much more textual and even more graphical as a side content. So in the beginning, you only had the show description, but now you have links to different parts, and then some clients and some systems even show slideshows on the side, so when someone is talking about an image, you can see that image. So everything is truly multimedia here, and we need to, in a way, find a way back to the Microsoft Encarta thing of the 90s, the bundled multimedia thing that is really that contains everything, and we don't really have that format.
You're talking about like a Swift file with Flash?
Yeah, exactly. We had a couple of goes through, but everything has been proprietary, and we have no really open format. The closest thing we have is a web, but then it really needs to be a subset of the web that is much more stable. EPUB is one.
That's a really
in
great
that
point.
direction. In that direction, but looking through EPUB, it doesn't really feel that it's nailed down really.
Peter.
Yeah, does anyone remember that wonderful interaction sequence in Blade Runner when Harrison Ford was in front of the computer and he was going through the video trying to identify the key elements? I just love that interface.
I hated it. So much easier to point and click than say, square T4, zoom in, click, 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 to the left. But the romance of it, of course, Peter, of course, the romance of it was very strong.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Fred, sorry.
No, I was just going to briefly say, when would these things be used? We can think of always adding to these things. That's one of the problems of these systems, right? Doug talked about having a handbook of the best up to date on whatever topic. I make a lot of books, relatively speaking, in Adobe Lightroom of the family, particularly Edgar's life. So now we're in Norway, second of 2 short trips this summer. Chances are I'm going to make a book out of that. In Lightroom, it's really easy. You drag and drop things, click print, and then at a huge expense, a book comes through the mail. So I'm thinking in this context, today or tomorrow, for example, would be the kind of day where we or I or whoever would make a book on visual meta until now, because it's a milestone tomorrow, this announcement, right? So if it has some kind of a versioning system where you really choose, you can do all kinds of things while we're in dialogue all the time, but we publish a version 1 of this particular wrapper of this. Otherwise, it's kind of like adding without meaning.
Yeah, I think Standoff, as far as like showing a killer app to visual meta, Standoff would be the way to go. But the side note, just to touch back on Adam, what you were saying about the bundled medium, and it's not practical right now, but I think it's such a great point that what we're missing is almost like a parent medium. If you could imagine that Flash was still around and we still had Swift files, and that's how we read our EPUBs, right? So that they could transition between reading a book and then watching the movie clip or commenting and like there should still be this parent file format for all media. And Swift or Flash, I guess, was maybe trying to do that, and then that would not have been a good future either. But there are ideas there that are still valid.
Sorry for being high on visual meta today, but it's hard not to be.
Yeah.
I think in a way, visual meta could be that because of what you said earlier, Alan. So imagine the product by any one of us will be, we go into our whatever authoring, Adam's environment, mine, really doesn't matter, do our things, make our multi-visual, blah, 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 publish it to the rest of us as a PDF. The visual meta at the end will say, this is based on this or these video files that are these locations, have these hashes, whatever addressability, many, in case it moves. In the document itself, where we had natively video clip playing, the visual meta will say exactly what that is with any annotations, just like we can do with headings. So that if you're reading this with a plain PDF reader, it'll just say like a placeholder box with maybe a gray picture of that. So it'll have it can gracefully degrade depending on support. And then it may have a link to the video underneath, and that's all it can do. But then depending on the readers we have, because of the visual meta, we can say this placeholder is now live. These are the annotations on it and all of that good stuff. So we can use that mechanism to have, you see the thing about infrastructures, they can be really plain, but if they are really stable, then we can do really crazy shit on top of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if, okay, Peter has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm starting to integrate ink into my website. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's one of the newer interactive fiction systems. And it's basically a rough markup language that lets you describe the flow of dynamic text so that you can click on automatically generated little text fragments, and that will expand the next section of the document for you. It should be very well suited to some possible legal applications I've been speculating on with Megan. And the possibility of using that with visual meta seems kind of intriguing. One of the things that Ink has is this notion of getting outside the box of its core system by letting you include tags. And basically that's, imagine you're writing your text and essentially a bunch of paragraphs. If the paragraph starts with a star, that gets turned into a choice button. If it starts with a minus, that's a point at which previous choices get collapsed to bring the flow of the narrative back to a single uniform node to make sure that everything is moving forward. But beyond that, anywhere along the way, you can include these tags, which are basically a comment starting with a hashtag, a type name, a colon, and then a value. And the system extracts that. Then in the client, you basically loop through and you ask the story to continue and generate the next paragraph. If the next paragraph takes the form of one of those tags, the reader will then decide what to do with that tag. And the current reader code would, for instance, look for an image tag. And if it's an image tag, it would then inject into the HTML representation of the document a normal image tag in the HTML world to draw the image on screen. So you sort of have a layer of visual meta, only it's an inline visual meta as opposed to visual meta at the end in the Ink system. So I'm working on bringing that into the IMBA environment so that I can directly code things and expand that tag set. But it's very interesting technology. And it might be possible, they have an editor that's very nice. And let's see, what was the name of the editor? 1 second, I'll tell you in a moment. Inky. Inky is the name of the Ink editor. And it lets you type your story text, and it warns you whether you have any loose ends in your story. And it generates a playable version of the story in a pane alongside the raw text pane. So you can see your text in that. But the group is pretty open. The software is out on GitHub, and I wonder if we approach them, whether we could get them to automatically append visual meta at the end of stories that it generates. And that could be useful. And it could also be a way of bringing interactivity into the visual meta world, possibly leveraging their existing code.
That's interesting to reflect on, Peter.
Yeah, I'll throw in 2 cents there. Love Ink. There was a time where I was actually trying to use it in UX research. It's a choose your own adventure thing. It's great, and it's also not complete. In some ways, Rome completed what Ink could do but it's not complete in its own way. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was about Ink that was still frustratingly linear. And even though the markup language is terse and expressive, it's still things get trapped. Meaning gets trapped. It's not as dynamic. But what would be pretty wild is actually Ink and standoff properties were kind of a match made in heaven. So you're not actually altering the core text, but yeah, you're adding a layer of interactivity on top. Interesting.
Adam, you want to talk more about Gordon Substack in this context?
Yes, it's kind of the idea of having a system that can be more augmented, or the readers could add more things, the things they understand, they render. So you could include many different files. It's not fully defined beforehand. You could have many different tags, and you just render the things you can understand. And I think it's a way of replacing Markdown with something simpler that can have, but that really can have other media in it as well, images and so on. But I keep coming back to that we really, the outer wrapper is much more an EDL than anything else. I don't think letting PDF being the outer wrapper is a good thing. I think PDF should be inside the wrapper and not as an outer wrapper for it. So I really think we have something here, and many other people have also thought along those lines. But it could be a very simple EDL, bringing in sources from it and combining the metadata and the EDL, combining those two things closely together.
I disagree with you about PDF not being the outer wrapper.
But should PDF include videos and should the whole world live in a PDF? That is the most sad vision ever, Frode. Do you want to send PDF to your children?
Wait a second. I think I got a way to make both sides happy. What if the PDF, instead of being like the outer wrapper, I mean, this is almost like semantic mental models. If the PDF is more like the table of contents or the front piece for this wrapper, it's the instructions for this wrapper, and the wrapper itself might include the actual media, right? But the PDF could include the links and the instructions to how the media works and interacts with everything else.
Yeah, I obviously it's obviously something like that. The reason I am so gung-ho on PDF is only because it exists. It is robust. That's it. I have no specific sensual love for PDF.
But it's not really robust. The rendering is robust, but everything else is not robust about it.
But that's why we use the rendering, right? That's really the thing.
Yeah, but this is something else. It's not the rendering that we want.
But hang on. So Adam, I completely agree with you that it would be insane to take a 7 GB file inside a PDF, a video. That would not be a clever thing to do. So of course we need to have another kind of wrapper, but it has to be a kind of wrapper that your average Facebook user can use, right? It has to be something that is so clear and fits together. Because I'm thinking, my market in the terms of how I think is to augment students because they're young and they're learning stuff. So in the context of this discussion here, I really think we are teaching students who will be doing Zoom type projects in the future how to project manage based on that, right? It's the biggest market in the world, probably. Everybody has meetings like this now.
Except for it's not the market.
No. I'm talking about the market to focus on. I'm not saying we're gonna.
Low battery.
Is it Peter again with his low battery headphones?
Okay.
Oh, was that what that was? So I'm just thinking, yes, of course, the PDF or whatever, now it has to be PDF for now anyway, will have all kinds of stuff in the visual meta saying the actual stuff is somewhere else. Some of it can be on YouTube for a while, but yes, it would be really, really good if it had access to local versions. And of course, you're absolutely right. It has to have some kind of a wrapper thing going on. But then, okay, let's look at your system, Adam. Let's say you build these things we're talking about, and now you want to share it with us. What kind of thing do you want to export, and what kind of thing do we need to open? Would it be something like a zip file, or would it be, like you said, a folder, or what is something that a natural knowledge worker would be comfortable?
Yeah, it could be a folder or a zip file, any of them, or both of them. That the reader software could either look into the folder as an unzipped version or the zipped version. But for most part, that would be transparent. The actual reader software will upload that bundle and download it and put it somewhere in a big folder with all your documents.
So let's look at this from another perspective that we have done before. One of the things that we want is for normal text PDF to be able to cite another text PDF. If it's on your hard drive, it just opens it when you click on the citation. It doesn't go through the download link. That's because we have VMID type stuff, right? So imagine then that all the references in the PDF are to some kind of ID, video file ID, this, etc. So then it should be optional. All you need to do is send the PDF if all the sources are online and accessible. And the reader should be able to choose to download those if it has permission to or not, or whatever means. So we really have to have the ways to identify and address individual media rather than locations only. It goes back to that, doesn't it? Hang on, just as a last sentence on that. That means that, Adam, for this kind of a meeting, you have a huge file on your desktop, and you send this stuff to us. If we also have the same file, it's pointless sending that video file back and forth. So we have to have a way that this software can speak to us in a group saying this was recorded together. So we're going to call it blah, blah, blah. And even though the beginning or end may be slightly different when we enter the call, it is referring to the same event. So we have to have an event ID as well, right? And we have to have encoding of every frame in the video with a UUID, not a UUID, what am I saying? Network time of when it was, so it can link up. These are all entirely difficult but achievable problems, right?
Yep.
And I'll throw in 2 cents there. Frode, I think you're right on the real worldness of PDF, that it's already out there. There's already, everything can read a PDF. And the way that, at least I imagine Visual Meta going is almost like a Trojan horse inside of a PDF, where I can see the future of it is that the PDF that we think of as being this awful format gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and more gets stored in the Visual Meta, not the actual media assets, but the instructions about them. And then it becomes a little bit like how websites these days, if they were just HTML, they would suck. Or, well, I would love them. But websites these days have far more JavaScript than HTML. I could see a correlation between the PDF being roughly HTML and Visual Meta being this whole, like, this is how we understand PDFs actually work these days, is all this extra. That's a bad example too, because nobody wants a heavy website. But
No. This is a great example. And you just remind me of something I wrote 15 years ago, of how there's no reason a document can't be an iceberg, where what the human reads is this much, what's behind it is massive. You know, it's still not that huge amount of data. Of course, what we've done since, instead of that being right behind the text, it's moved off somewhere else, which is turning out to be useful. But yeah, there's absolutely, code, all kinds of stuff. Put the JavaScript, put it on Visual Meta. Anything that can help. Of course, as you were saying, the main stuff, the main heavy media needs to be elsewhere. But, there can be a huge amount of stuff at the back of the document saying, if you can't find this video here, this is the transcript of it. Include the transcript. I know it's going to take a while and most people will hate it, but imagine a PDF that's 2 pages long with the Visual Meta's 20 pages. Nothing wrong with that. Hopefully readers will develop to just hide that, unless you choose a different view and then you see it, right?
The thing that I've wanted to build for years, since I was at a startup that worked on this problem, was I feel like I should always have been able to write a blog post and have that content be transformed into slides for a presentation as needed, or perhaps transformed into a chat bot, or, the content itself points into these different views, which are mediums, but they're just views, they're just layers. And I could see this here where, like, you have the same PDF, but now you switch the interactive ink version, and so now you can traverse it and make choices, and those are stored, standoff version, etc.
When I just posted in the chat all of the different kinds of meta tags that are being recognized by the ink system, and all of these are implemented on the client side in JavaScript. They simply pass through the ink editor unmolested, and the client code calling the ink engine to return the next paragraph of story content would spit up one of these tags, and a little driver program in JavaScript would split the tag into its property name and the property value. And if the property name is one of the meta properties corresponding to some sort of XML or HTML tag or some sort of JavaScript interaction, it would go and perform that. And again, because it's a meta property, it doesn't show up as part of the story text. It merely gets spit out and digested by the system and acted on. And the ink side of the engine doesn't need to know anything about it. So all that you need to do to extend the system is to simply recognize a new property name that isn't currently implemented, do something useful with it, and move on requesting the next paragraph of text be generated to display. So I should be able to tie that in with the IMBA client-side router so that I could have interaction in ink serve as like a navigational chatbot.
Thank
that
you
could
so much for being
to
here
the
today.
website or bring up a data visualization if I wanted to, or just about anything else that we can think of down the road.
So we're running low on time, unfortunately. I can stay a little bit over, but things. I really think we need to. I think we need to do this first of all. I think most people agree here. We should try to do something like this.
Yes.
Yep.
A little bit of head movement. Okay, excellent. Secondly, I think we should probably start the old-fashioned way by writing usage scenarios, doing it, HCI style early 2000s, and really reflect on it, because it's so easy. I'm sure you've all gone through this before, of doing a collaborate to save the world, and then it becomes mush, right? So really, really nail it down. If you're working in a company, and this was the difference between Ted Nelson and Doug Engelbart, I felt. If you're working in a company, Doug felt you were just going to do everything you can to achieve the objectives of the company, update the handbook, do whatever. Ted was more realistic in, people are not going to give away their knowledge for free. That is their capital in the company. People collaborate for different reasons. That's what I think we need to take into account here. Let's pretend that today we had a product design meeting. What really needs to come out of it? A few action items, which we could even write down on pen and paper. And there's also the thing of, there will be meetings where you want to turn everything off so you can be literally off the record, that kind of thing. But what are the packages? What are the knowledge packages we're trying to make? It would be really fascinating to have a few meetings purely on that, where we forget the technology and we live in a Harry Potter world. We have magical screens only.
It'd be great to do a whiteboard session and identify those, and then pick one to start out on, even if it's not the best one.
Anything that is clear, yes.
Yeah.
Because, there's so much opportunity, and so much, for us, it's so much fun. But for the other billions of people out there, it's not really that interesting, so we have to make sure we don't spiral. I know. But I think we can. I think we have with the wider community here, good enough rapport that we can say things, and then we have polite ways of saying that's absolute ludicrous, and get somewhere.
How can other people not be excited about text?
Yeah.
I know, right?
One struggle I have, and I'm probably not alone in this, is these are great to talk about, but until there's a tool to test this out, it's kind of like it has to stay in the conjecture land. So the question would be, what is the quickest, easiest way to get that kind of tool? And I really like the hypothesis approach of export into standoff as one example. Another one out there that I'm looking into, it probably won't exactly line up, but FigJam, which is the collaborative part of Figma, has opened up their APIs and allows for plugins. And I wonder if that might be a nice, let Figma do all the heavy lifting of collaboration or multiplayers.
And you have a URL for that?
Create the artifact. What's that?
You have a URL for that, if you could put in the chat?
Yeah, sure.
I watched the release presentation. It was pretty fun.
One use case that I've always wanted would be the ability to painlessly push citations to a colleague. Imagine I'm in Reader and I see a particular site that I really like. I'd like to have a panel with maybe photos or just names of everybody that I've been working with. And I'd like to be able to drag that citation onto Frode's smiling face and know that the next time he opens up his reader, he'll have an inbound citation that contains that content that he can stick into his document and have it available as if he'd defined it in his local bibliography in the program he was open when he received the incoming site, so that we could just directly person to person send citations back and forth instead of the current approach where, you know, maybe I'll have a Zotero group, he's got to subscribe to the Zotero group, update his group entry, and then drag it in. It's just too much passivity there and need for active pull action on the part of the recipient. So a direct push me citation mechanism would be just a dream.
I'm just checking something here, Peter. Oh, that's kind of weird.
So one quite simple thing is that I want to cite these videos, the office hours. I want to cite them in text and make it visible to you. So that is kind of a simple,
That's true.
simple
That's a good one.
application. I want to cite a time or a specific point or a range in time period, and add a small text comment and maybe put a link there to some to a resource. Yeah, in a way like how the chat is here, but the chat disappears into a text file, hopefully, or not at all. I want to have it visible beside the video.
On Peter's point, in Author currently, if you click on a citation, you can click copy citation, then go to chat and paste, and you get this.
Nice.
And if
What did you just show?
I showed that in Author. If you come across a citation, you click on it and you get the citation window. At the bottom, we have copy citation.
Oh, okay.
That basically currently just copies the BibTeX. So I'm going to go into the chat we have in our group here, and that's basically that.
See, I'd kind of like to be able to.
Because hang on, just to close this loop. Sorry, guys. I know you can't see this because this is in the chat from you guys. I go to the previous one, I copy that BibTeX, and then I go back to Author. When I paste now, it'll paste that citation. So what Author does is just interpret the BibTeX and turn it into an internal citation. There's no reason why that can't be expanded to
For the
video stuff.
Sorry, for the sake of the people watching in the future, can you take what you just put in the chat or share screen or something and just show what you copy pasted into chat?
I can do such a thing. So here we are in Author. I click on a citation, click copy, then I'll go to mail actually, new message. And then here I paste that.
Great, thanks.
And if I now go to kind of complete the demo, here's another one, copy citation, another one, go to Author, paste that, and then I send it to one of you guys. You just copy that. And when you then paste, you paste that.
Nice.
So all it's do, sorry, what?
For an even more fluid interface, we could have, instead of copy citation, mail citation, and then a pop-up list of people from your address book that you might want to mail it to, and eliminate the context break of having to jump into the mail app and then jump back into the Author map. Just do it all in Author, because all you need to do is really just send a standard subject line, you know, citation from so-and-so that you could generate automatically and squirt it out and bypass mail altogether.
Yeah, maybe, but I think Adam's situation is what's kind of, so obviously in video, YouTube, we can control click to choose cite from this point. That is obviously part of that. I just didn't have one. So that would work. But if we have a system that also knows who is speaking, like using the Descript app, then it could be a full citation. Oh, sorry, Gunther, I didn't see, concentrating too hard. So it could then include a full citation based on that moment in time from the video, because Descript has learned our voices or who did it. Then we should be able to very, very easily send EDLs to each other that are full citations. right? So Adam clicks on a bit in the video, whether on YouTube or here, shouldn't matter. Sends that by text message, put it in a PDF, shouldn't matter, to Peter. Peter clicks on that. And not only can he view it, he can also use it as a citation so that anyone can see who did the speaking, when they did it, what the title of that was. So, because that's 50% of visual meta is not what's in the document, it's what's on the clipboard. And if we manage to make that really open and usable in many different ways, you know, that's an interesting infrastructure too. I mean, when I first realized that the clipboard hasn't got one thing, but it's got different versions of that one thing, wow, that was an exciting moment.
Once a reader gets into iOS, a lot of that stuff will come out of the box. It'll be easier to share across platforms.
Just a couple more weeks.
Nice.
But that'll be a very basic version. We got to make some money here for this research. And I can tell you, author's income is very realistic. It fits the average author. It's basically nothing. But that's all good. Embarrassingly, I have to go in a few minutes. But yes, Alan, what did you say?
Well, just, I would love to. I think that there's a lot of ideas that came out of this last meeting, and Adam, I think totally right. We need to document this, and Frode, I think, follow up with use cases. I'd love to start helping to build or organize or you know, do some spikes if need be of you know, what's the next phase, what's the next iteration. There are some killer ideas here that they still need to be ironed out to show other people how they could be easily implemented. But I'd love to help out with that.
Yeah, why don't we plan on Friday to, because on Thursday it's more general, on Friday to really dig into this more, maybe. Actually, for next Friday, we'll just keep talking. Let's not structure too much yet. What do you think, guys? We're not ready for that, are we?
Is there a place where we're sharing documentation?
Sorry, what's that?
Is there a place where we're sharing documentation? Sorry, Adam.
Well, we are. No, not yet. But we should. Yeah, Adam.
I'm interested in the coming weeks to do some sort of EDL prototype. In a way that's bypassing what you just said, because we want to be in the Harry Potter land-ish first, maybe, and just do graphical explorations and discussions and whiteboard things. But it was to have some throwaway prototypes that you could show how the EDL things could work. That would be interesting to me, because often I need to see things and feel or play with things to really understand them and see what's useful. As long as that doesn't really become the thing, but as you see it as a prototype or a play thing, and not the real direction, I think it's very useful.
Well, look, I completely agree. Sorry, I was just also replying to Alan's thing about Thursday. I'll send another email to the whole group about when Thursday is. Yeah, I mean, Adam, when we're thinking about doing this level, there's no reason we can't do that level at the same time. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, if we do an EDL, I mean, it can't be that hard to make a video player for Mac. You know, Apple gives us plenty of stuff. So to be able to even, you know, imagine if you build one and you do copy this location with author. If we have something from Descript that links to this, great. If not, you should be able to just type in the name of who was speaking and then wrap all the visual meta around it, put it on the clipboard, and then we can play on this side of the fence and we can move that data back and forth.
Would @Jason help with this?
By the way, just
I have no opinion on that. I'll leave it to Peter and Adam.
What do you mean by EDL? Just to make sure people know what the acronym.
Edit decision list. Yeah, like in the olden days where we would cut film, you know, 3 meters of this scene.
Because it's one of those acronyms that has multiple meanings overlaid on it. So I just wanted to be clear which EDL we were talking about.
if we could embed the full unzipped term for any acronym, and that would automatically be copied and pasted across all OSs, I would die knowing that I've contributed something positive to the world.
When you say acronym like EDL,
Yeah, or SIP, or what? Yeah, the things that this world of this 1984 double think world where we have so many acronyms and they only work if you are familiar with the specific
I
context.
hate acronyms so much.
Yeah, me too. Oh, my world in telephony. Well, I didn't want it to be my world per se, but the world that I find myself in has like 100 years of acronyms. And sometimes the very same acronyms can mean conflicting things.
yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And I'm constantly jumping between disciplines where the same acronym has completely different definitions associated with it.
You don't even save time saying the acronym sometimes.
Yeah. Please, you
FIK,
attach the context to it.
as far as I know, you're right. No,
You should start
absolutely.
calling them acronyms.
Acronyms, I love that. But here's the thing, we're so close to solving many of these issues because let's say this was properly recorded and we can do basic machine learning on our stuff and we have basic search. As long as someone, Peter asked, what is EDL? If someone asks, oh, EDL is so-and-so, there's not that, it can't be that hard for when you do a search on EDL, it'll show you the one, at least show you the one where someone answered the question on it.
But so EDL, if you do a Google search for EDL, you'll find, I'm sure, like hundreds of different things that might even have a higher priority than the one we're used to. But you should be able to search for edit and EDL pop up as an option. You know what I mean?
Enhanced driver's license.
But I'm thinking about in the context of our conversation, of our recorded conversation.
Oh, right.
I was saying enhanced document layer.
Entry, descent, and landing by NASA.
Enhanced document layer. I like that.
Yep.
And the entry, descent, landing. This is all brilliant. Anyway, let's end on this. And, I look forward to presenting Visual Meta tomorrow. And I'm so grateful to you guys. You have no idea. And I look forward to talking on Thursday and having a proper meeting on Friday.
Really fantastic presentation, by the way, Frode. Loved it.
Glad
Yeah.
you liked it.
It's gonna be
It's
great.
been, well, having 5 minutes means a lot of compression.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's lossless compression. See you later. Bye.
Bye bye, guys.
Couldn't have done a better job myself.
Thank you.